All right, good evening, guys. Tonight we are going to be talking about our next lesson, which is focused entirely on the year 1968. So our learning target for today, I can explain why 1968 was such a critical year in U.S. history and how it shaped opinions regarding Vietnam. So we're going to look at about 5 events that will really dictate why 1968 was truly a year where the country totally unravels. Now, first place we're going to start, New Year's Day, 1968. Now, when we say New Year's Day, we mean New Year's Day in Vietnam. Okay, the actual date, as far as America goes, is January 30th. Okay, so it's January 30th. As far as Vietnam is concerned, people are still more in favor of actually being in Vietnam. So we have more hawks than doves still. Not by much, but we still have more hawks than doves. As far as LBJ, people still are fairly favorable towards LBJ. And race relations are improving. They're not great in the country, but they are improving because of people like MLK and because of also legislation from the Great Society. However, what we're going to see is that once January 30th hits, all hell will break loose. So, the first issue we're going to look at is something known as the Tet Offensive. And what the Tet Offensive is it was an attack by the Viet Cong on America and the South Vietnamese. Now, Tet is something known as the Vietnam New Year. So what both sides decided to do was they decided to have a truce, a week-long truce. And in this week-long truce, a lot of people from South Vietnam decided to have like funerals and celebrations from those who have passed away. Well, what the Viet Cong did was during these funerals, in coffins, in churches, all throughout South Vietnam on January 30th, the Viet Cong had a surprise attack, and they basically went crazy on America and South Vietnam. They went absolutely crazy. So this goes on for about a month. Okay, so it wraps up right around the end of February. Now the death tolls of the Tet Offensive, 32,000 dead Viet Cong, and only about 3,000 dead Americans in South Vietnam. So when you look strictly at these numbers, it looks like we did a pretty good job. And General Westmoreland, who was in charge of Vietnam, says that we are doing great. We are about to win the Vietnam War after the Tet Offensive. But this is not the case. After the Tet Offensive, people in America are freaking out. We are more down about Vietnam than we ever have been. Why? Because it was a huge blow to morale. Because whenever we look on the TV, we see death and destruction. And the credibility gap is worse than ever. What the government is telling us is we're the closest we've ever been. What we see on TV is more blood and massacre and innocent death. The Tet Offensive is so bad that what's going to happen next is that LBJ is basically he's forever in the wrong. He really can do no right. And so in March, because of the Tet Offensive, he decides not to run for re-election. and this is kind of LBJ's famous quote, "The Vietnam War killed the lady that I really loved, the Great Society." And we talked about this, what the Great Society was and its impact, but because of the Vietnam War, LBJ will forever be looked at as a president who was not very successful, even though many of his programs actually were successful. But LBJ's lasting legacy will always be he was the person that really dragged us and kept us in Vietnam. So he decides that he's not going to run again. Now, despite the fact that LBJ is basically a failure, we do have two great hopes, as I kind of refer to them, in 1968. We have MLK, no explanation needed. I mean, you guys know all about MLK and civil rights, and he was just kind of this beacon of hope. But we also have a gentleman by the name of Robert Kennedy. And Robert Kennedy was the younger brother of JFK. And Kennedy was a rising star in the Democratic Party. And so once LBJ announces that he's not going to run for president, RFK throws his hat in the ring. And it's becoming, it's looking more and more likely that RFK will win the Democratic nomination and follow LBJ, and he has a very, very good chance of winning the war. Of winning the election. Because when people look at RFK, they see a younger John F. Kennedy, and he's kind of that beacon of hope that JFK was, that the country can be great, that everything can be fantastic. But what happens next? In 1968, we see the assassination of both MLK and the assassination of Robert Kennedy happen within 2 months of each other. This is a huge blow. The end result of this, with MLK, major race riots. With RFK, it's kind of just this idea of, oh no, not again. That was one of the headlines that I saw in the newspapers, and I thought that was a fantastic headline. Oh no, not again. Like, can things get any worse? The headline somewhat pertains to JFK, but it also pertains to just all this terribleness that is going on during 1968, and can it get any worse? The answer is can. The last thing we're going to look at is the Democratic National Convention. And at the Democratic National Convention... Sorry.
Peterson, if you are in the building, please go to the athletic office immediately. Marletta Peterson, you're needed in the athletic office.
All right, sorry, there was an announcement. All right, so at the DNC, they are going to announce who the next Democratic nominee is going to be, because it's not going to be LBJ and it's not going to be RFK. And so the DNC is held in Chicago, and the guy who's kind of hosting it is a guy by the name of Richard Daley, and Richard Daley is the mayor of Chicago. So, along with the DNC candidates and delegates, so people who are going to decide who the Democratic candidate is going to be, they are joined by 10,000 protesters. Some Vietnam protesters, some protesters who are protesting race riots and race relations and all that stuff. Daley's promised that he's going to keep law and order. He's going to make sure that these protesters do not get out of line. What's going to happen, though, is a huge backfire, and we're going to look at this more in class tomorrow. But the protesters, what do they want? They want attention from the TV cameras. And so what they're going to do is they're going to incite kind of riots. They're going to egg on the police. And what's going to happen, the end result, is we are going to see huge riots that take place in Chicago. Thousands and thousands of people are going to be sent to the hospital because of all the riots that are going on and because the police are just beating people. So even though he promised law and order, what he's going to get is mass chaos. And it's exactly what the protesters wanted. The Democrats, even though they're going to want somebody to become the next president, it's not going to happen. And so what we're going to look at as an end result is the next president is going to be a gentleman by the name of Richard Nixon, who is going to be a Republican. All right, so if we can explain why 1968 was so crucial, because of the Tet Offensive, because of MLK, and because of RFK, and because of the Democratic National Convention, then we are good to go. How did it impact Vietnam? What happens is we go from being more hawks than doves to being totally 100%, about 40% to 40%, 100% equal, with 20% still kind of in the middle. Okay? But this equality right here, it is absolutely 100% going to go down for the doves, and it's going to go up for the hawks as 1968 starts to move along. So that's all I got for you guys. Hope you enjoy it. We will see you all tomorrow. Get ready to go. Bye.